Let's do this. Hello and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all types of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, so it's been crazy. I got to meet Marisa and I did an interview with her, and then she showed me a friend, and now we got her here. And I'm so excited to
Yay.
start this conversation with Elizabeth White. She is a spiritual psychology coaching. So I am really interested about that. She helps you know yourself, live authentically, and create a purposeful life. So let's get to know her. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to the show. So, what is life with you?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So what is life with me? If we go on a personal route, I've got a 13-year-old daughter. So that, yes, yes.
Didn't expect that. Sorry.
Do you have kids?
No, but you look so
Okay.
young to have a
Yeah.
13-year-old daughter.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm 33. Yeah, I'm 33. I've got a
Nice.
13-year-old daughter. And she is a really awesome kid. She's definitely a teenager, though. So we've got some rifts there at times. I live right next to my parents, and my dad has stage 4 cancer. He has for the past over 2 years now. He just keeps living, but I help them out a lot with the property and their stuff and things like that. On a professional level, I work with primarily women who are frustrated with their life, and they feel like there's something that's missing, or they feel like they're lost in where to go or what they really want. A lot of my clients don't really know themselves very well. They've very much lived off of people pleasing and doing the things that society says will make you happy, because I've definitely been there. I've had all the things that, everyone said, well, family's going to make you happy. The career's going to make you happy. The relationship's going to make you happy, and I was like, okay, so I have all these things and something's missing. So that can be a very confusing spot for people to get to, and then go, okay, what do I need? What's missing when I have all the things that society said would make me happy? Then I've got a very big dog, who's a baby. She's an English Mastiff. Her name's
Oh my
Mabel.
gosh. Yeah, that's a big dog.
She's actually on the small side for English Mastiffs. I think she's around 120, 110, 120.
Oh, that's
So
it.
that's it. But surprisingly, that's the small side for females. They get up to, I think, 170. But she's a good dog.
Yeah, they are. It's funny because I'm a mail lady during the day, podcaster at night, and there
Yeah.
was one on my route. It was a puppy, and then it was a horse. And a matter of a month, I was like, "Oh my gosh, how did that happen?" He was like, it was still a huge puppy, but it was like in
Oh,
a couple of months, it was
yeah.
almost to the full size, and I was like, "That's a big puppy." But
Yeah.
so yeah, tell us more about your mission. How it started and how you help others.
Yeah. I honestly, majority of my life, I wanted to be some kind of therapist or something like that. Um, and for some reason, it never worked out going to school for it. I started a few different times, and there were these, it felt like off the wall things that would happen where it would prevent me from being able to go to school. So there was one time I had postpartum depression after I had my daughter. There was one time where they increased the cost of school, where with grants and the loans I had available, I couldn't pay for all of school. And then there was another time where I physically couldn't get my transcripts in time to the school to be able to start on my classes. So it's kind of strange when you've got this calling And there's all of these things that are stopping you. And so I was talking about a time in my life where I was like, okay, I have everything. Why aren't I happy? That was summer of 2020. And at that point, I was just like, okay, I've got to figure something out. So I just started looking into all these self-improvement things, and I got super into working out for a year and a half or so. But I realized about 3 months in, I was like, I like this, but this isn't what it is that I'm actually missing. So I'm a huge research person. Um, so I started researching things on the internet on purpose, like how do you find your purpose? What is your purpose? How do you know if it's your purpose? All of these different things. And of course, social media is tracking us, and they saw that. And I got an ad for a woman that was doing training in trauma and other
Mm.
areas of life. And so I ended up signing up with her. And that's where I got my certification, and where things really started to shift. And um, a little over a year ago, I quit my corporate job and have been coaching full time since then.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, help me out. So how do you find your purpose?
How do you? Okay. Well, the thing is that there's so when as kids, we come in with certain programming in our subconscious where it's like, uh, first, I mean, there's the basic stuff where it's like breathing and our heart beating. You don't have to think about that to make it happen. It just happens because our subconscious brains tells our bodies to stay alive. Then we also come in with generational beliefs and generational ideas in our subconscious. We also, between the age of 0 and 7, you're in the imprint phase, which is the theta brainwave state. And at the theta brainwave state, your subconscious is most accessible. So everything that happens or that you perceive to happen between age 0 and 7, you automatically log it into your subconscious as accurate and true. So in finding your purpose, it's really going back to understanding, what are you programmed with? What are your beliefs? It's
Mm.
when you can like consciously think about it and say, well, I do love myself, you know, but there can still be a subconscious part that's like, we weren't told that as kids. We were taught that you don't love yourself, that you're not worthy of love, so there's a point in understanding, am I actually acting from a place where I truly love myself, or am I acting from a place where I'm this little kid who's constantly being told I'm not worthy of love? So finding your purpose is understanding what it is you're programmed with,
Mm.
and deconstructing all of that stuff that isn't serving you in your life. I mean, the thing is that it's fine if you want to live a life where you don't love yourself. That's totally fine. That's everyone gets to choose what it is that they want for themselves and what's important to them in their lives. But there's another part where it's like, if you don't like that, if you want to live a life where you truly love yourself and you respect yourself and you honor yourself, that's a different story if you're holding that belief that you aren't worthy of love.
Yeah, and I gotta say, talking to you, I appreciate my mom because she put the right programming in it in the middle of her chaos, in that
Yeah.
7 years, because it wasn't until 9 where my biological father come in and busted that bubble. That
Okay.
so, but at least her thing, so when I was going through my darkest days, her love and everything comes out.
Yeah.
And now I'm 35 and I'm like, I'm not gonna become my mom. But I'm becoming my mom, but I'm trying to detox, from all of that, because you do have to do a lot of inner child work
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I had an almost perfect mom, but she wasn't present. So there's some things that I'm still missing. So it's like
Uh-huh.
going back and like uh parenting yourself.
Yeah. 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 And I've had a lot of conversations about the whole childhood thing because had what I consider a very good childhood. My parents were good people. They did the absolute best that they could. I didn't have any significant traumatic events. What I had was traumatic dynamics and traumatic perspectives on my part. The way that I perceive the dynamics of the family, whether it's true or not, that's what was more traumatizing for me as a child than it was, having a parent that showed love or anything like that. Or having being in a car crash as a little kid or any actual event. It was more of the dynamics of what was going on in my family. And for me personally, I decided, because I've done some inner child work around self-love, and I went back to being in the womb and like receiving my DNA and going through the forgetting process. And I immediately identified my physical DNA for this lifetime as me. So I immediately put that as this physical thing is who I am, when that's not at all who I am. I also then decided that I didn't like my mom's emotions being in the womb. And so I was trying to fix them and get rid of them, and all of that. And it felt like this constant, like spinning my wheels, just trying to get rid of it, trying to get rid of it, trying to get rid of it. And then eventually I was just kind of gave up on trying to get rid of it so hard, because I realized I couldn't do it. But then growing up, it's like I took on this responsibility that I needed to take care of my mom's emotions. And I needed to be the one to make sure she was okay. So I didn't start any arguments. I was very, I was a good kid because I didn't want there to be any rifts in the family, or for me to cause any issues or to create any emotions in anybody else, which is another limiting belief, that I'm even capable of causing anyone to feel anything.
Yeah, I get it. For me, my mom was, I can relate because, but in my case, my mom had five sisters. She has five sisters. No, they're still here. And she's the baby. My mom is the baby. So she
Uh-huh.
has five women trying to tell her what to do.
Oh, okay.
So I'm always very protective of my mom. And then when I met my dad at 9,
Uh-huh.
instead of going, he put me into the danger zone, anxiety, because I thought that he was going to come to take me away from my mom. So then I
Oh,
felt like I had to protect my mom even harder than I already did for having five sisters. So
yeah.
it's not till my 30s that I'm like, okay, woman, you're your own person. You got some issues. So can we call a therapist, please? Because I can't handle you. I am in my 30s. I'm trying to build a family.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find myself, and I can't deal with your emotions and whatever you have going on in your life. Can you please do your work? And she did
Yeah.
listen to me. So thank you, Jesus. And, but yeah, I don't know. It's like, and like I said, my mom is almost perfect, but you always got that depending on your relationship. So I can relate of like wanting to protect her and then having to detach,
Yeah.
because you are trying to figure it out. And I can't imagine, I don't have kids yet. And I can't imagine, having to try to find yourself as you're trying to raise somebody else and make
Yeah.
sure that you're doing it right with the programming in there while you're working on your programming. That's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I am very sure that I have screwed my daughter up, probably, hugely. But the interesting thing with having her at such a young age is that she has been able to watch me change a lot more than I think that she would have been able to if I had had her at a later age.
Mm,
So I think that with her, because she's been able to watch that, it's like it's become normal to shift. It's become normal to transform. It's been become normal to recognize, what your issues are, what's really going on, and then work on yourself. Um, I also had a son who passed away when she was 2.5.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
yeah, it's okay. It's 2023, so it's been now 11 years. And that when he died, that was what really shifted our relationship. That was the big first shift in our relationship, because I made the decision at that point that I wasn't going to lie to her about things. And because like coming home from the hospital, and she was asleep at the time, and me and her dad were trying to figure out what do we tell her? She's 2.5. How do we tell her? um and how do we grieve while we're also taking care of a 2.5-year-old?
Oh, wow.
And I made the decision that I would rather her see my emotions and know that it is painful than for me to hide how it is that I was truly feeling and try to pretend like everything is okay. Um, so I became very transparent with her after that. And so we do have what I consider a better relationship than a lot of kids that are 13. There's a lot of things that she knows she can talk to me about. And also I make it an open thing in my household with her friends as well. And I tell them, as long as you're not doing anything illegal, you guys can have discussions about, whatever topics are coming up for you. And it's nice because then I'm there to be able to ask them some questions about, well, if they're talking about boys or whatever, then, do you feel like that's something that you would want from a boyfriend, or, those types of topics, to help them kind of think through what's a healthy relationship and what's not. And,
Yeah.
and also allow them to then have their own opinions and their own points of view, rather than just being the all-knowing parent that comes in
Mhm.
and says, this is how life works, this is what's right and this is what's wrong, but rather give them the space to start to figure some things out on their own. um but yeah, that definitely, my son dying definitely shaped a lot of our relationship. So
Yeah, and major props to you because my mom wasn't so good with a teenager. She took everything personal, and a lot of the topics were voodoo. So still to this day, there's some things. It's mostly because of the culture. I'm from Puerto
uh-huh.
Rico,
Okay.
and a lot of topics are voodoo. So I didn't have that kind of relationship with my mom, and I couldn't ask her those kind of questions. And when it came to grieving, my family acts like it's a Facebook block. So we're
Okay.
just not gonna talk about it, and that person never
Okay.
existed, and we're just
Oh,
gonna
wow.
move on through life.
That's
And
really
so
interesting.
at 9 years old, that was traumatic because I had a cousin, and then I didn't have a cousin, and now I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Very
So it
interesting.
was until my 30s that I started healing that little
Yeah.
girl and understanding grieving.
Yeah.
So having that relationship with your daughter and like having a safe place for her to be talking about her emotions, that I still can't talk about emotions with my mom. So that's great because as a teenager, that's what we need, and that
Yeah.
understanding. So yeah, so when it comes to your coaching, do you do like a group setting or like a one-on-one to take them through a process?
So I typically do one-on-ones. I would like to move into group stuff. I feel like being in a group, you feel like you're not alone and you're
Yeah.
not so strange. So I would really like to be able to move into doing more group coaching. But right now, I just have a one-on-one program, and I take clients through 7 phases. We start with very surface emotions, which are things like anger and frustration, sadness, upset. And we work on getting into real acceptance of okay, this person is experiencing life as if, I'm this horrible person. I can't change the fact that that's what they're choosing for themselves right now. And that's a perspective that they're living from right now. But I can release the emotion that that's how they feel and accept that they get their own choice in how they perceive me and how they perceive life and everything else. And then we move into doing visioning to really kind of set into not so much what does my mind think that I want, but what is it that my soul really wants? What is it that I deep down want that might not be in alignment with what my family wants for me, or might not be in alignment with what my friends want for me? But what is it that I want for myself? And then we go into the next phase is working through like problems and quandaries and things like that, and confusion. So we get really clear on commitments and values. And then we move into taking back your power. So this is a big one for my clients. And it's all about, where have we handed our power outside of ourselves? So where have we said that, food is more powerful than me, and like I'm going to eat everything, in the fridge because I can't handle it, and I'm saying I can't handle it when I know I can't. And,
Mhm.
deep down, I'm capable of anything. Or it could be, it's not always food. Sometimes it's, handing our power over to our partners and saying they can make me feel bad about myself, when in reality, no one can force you to think badly about yourself. You can't have boundaries, and say, this is what I'm okay with in a relationship, and this is what I'm not okay with in a relationship. But in reality, nobody can make us feel anything. We get to choose whether we feel that about ourselves, and they get to have their own perspective. And then we go into the real big work, which is the reprogramming your mind and working through some traumatic events. And I try to spend the most amount of time in that area because I feel that it is the most transformative. The more that you understand about what's really in your subconscious, the better off you are, because you have to at least be aware of what's going on to be able to make any shift. And then after that, we go through one session where we realign authentically. So we kind of take a look again as to things like, am I going on these golfing trips and I really don't like golfing, but I just do it because everybody else is doing it? But I know deep down, like, I get drained from them. I don't enjoy them, that type of thing.
Mhm.
And then after that, then we do our last call. We really get into goal planning and understanding, after we've done all of that subconscious reprogramming, what is my purpose? And after that, yourself so incredibly well that there's all of these new things that are coming in for you. And then we had done that visioning earlier in, working together, that helped bring in some of that as well. And I really enjoy that call because the goal planning is something that, for me, I've kind of struggled with in understanding um, how to actually set and accomplish long-term goals. So I help you with setting the long-term ones, and then we like backtrack it back to every step that needs to happen before you get to, this further out goal.
I love it. And I can see it. Like I see you were explaining. I've been in the life coaching business for so long,
Yeah.
and I have had a mentor for a couple of years. So as you were explaining your process, I'm like, heck yeah, I can see it, because you first go through all the emotions.
Mm,
And for me, I have a 7 mental health diagnosis. So emotions are a big thing in my world.
yeah.
And I have you just mentioned anger, and I was like, yep. anger has been like my main focus, and I for like the longest time I just thought that that was regular, especially because I
Uh,
work for the post office.
yeah.
So anger is just your best friend. If you're not angry, well, like, why are you working for the post office? You're supposed to be angry about everything.
That's
You
so
know,
funny.
and then like changing different faces, I can see how at the end, like you know, because you take all the trash out, pretty
Yeah.
much all the negative stuff that has been programmed, and where
Uh,
you can be clear and finally see like, oh, hold up, no, this is what I was programmed with, this is what I
yeah.
actually believe, and this is what I'm going for. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I actually want for my life. I think so with the reprogramming, I've noticed that so do you do affirmation work?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I've noticed with affirmations that your body will literally tell you what is programmed in your subconscious. So there's a lot of ways to figure out what's in your subconscious, but your body will tell you if it's able to accept a new affirmation or not.
Mhm.
And so what you do you notice this? How your body, if you say certain things, your body's like, we don't believe that.
Yeah. So when I started my process of dealing with depression, what I used to do, it was post notes. And
Okay.
I would look for affirmations or quotes or anything to put it like all over so I could read it.
Yeah.
But I was still stuck for like 4 or 5 years. And then it's like, is that like that in the
Mhm.
back of your head? There's this little thing that's like, mm-mm, no, girl, I'm so sorry, but we do not believe that. So that has to go away. Go and look for something more relatable.
Yes, yes, yes. You literally, at times, you'll have to like step it down, like, so my example with that is when I was 12 years old, I programmed my subconscious without fully being aware that that's what I was doing. I did it out of trying to punish myself for something that was a misunderstanding, and I didn't feel that I was actually like punished for it, but I felt that I was in the wrong. So when I would go to sleep, I would tell myself I hate myself until I fell asleep every single night.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yes. So, a few years ago, I was working with affirmations and I was like, this does not work. I was like, this is absolute crap. Like I sit here and I am constantly, every time I can possibly think of I love myself, I'm saying it to myself, but then periodically it's just popping back up. I hate myself when there's no even trigger for me to think anything like that. And so I was like, well, this is crap. And what I realized was that it was all of that emotion behind the I hate myself that was holding that in place for my subconscious. I hadn't released the emotion to be able to shift the wording, but then also my body and my brain was not ready to actually believe that I love myself. So I had to step the wording down. I had to work on actually releasing the emotion, and then I was able to slowly move myself up into I love myself.
I love that. Yep. And that's pretty much it. Go lower lower your standards and your beliefs till you start believing and get to the main goal of
Yeah.
loving yourself. And that one is a hard one. I have almost 2 years of loving myself, and I'm 35 years old.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting journey to get there.
Yeah. And not everybody does, so you
Yeah.
saying only 2 years and you're 35, not everybody gets that at all.
That's true.
So,
Thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder, because it is
yeah.
true. There's people out there just hating everything about themselves. And it's like, oh no, I did it
Yeah.
and it's not worth it. Just love yourself.
Yeah. 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 And I think a lot of that also comes back to the childhood stuff
Yeah.
where majority of people or majority of parents never were fully taught how to love themselves. So for us to expect that our parents really could have taught us how to do that is, it's not a reliable thing to say that our parents should have been able to teach us how to love ourselves. So I think it comes back to us doing the work to be able to love ourselves and then be able to teach our kids how to do that for themselves.
Hmm. Yeah, and
And
past generations before us, like loving yourself, what? That's not even a thing. Or talking
yeah.
about your feelings, you know. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
hard for like the boomers or generation X, I think. There's so
Yeah.
many freaking generations. I can't keep up. But yeah, I know
Yeah.
my mom's generation is like, when I told her about my mental health diagnosis, she was triggered. And she's like, there was
Oh,
no bipolar growing up. I was like, no, I seen it in my family. It's here. It's just that I'm the only one with a diagnosis about it.
yeah.
But yeah, so at a certain point in your life, you have to take accountability and stop making your parents like responsible for your life. Yeah, I have two
Mm.
parents. One tried to destroy me, and the other one loved me to the point that she was suffocating me. And then I have a third one that was like awesome. Is he's still awesome. So he's like my perfect parent, where it's more neutral.
Yeah.
uh but I put a lot of my past onto my biological father, because that one was the one that destroyed
Mm,
me. So everything that happened in my life, it was because of him. So it
mm,
wasn't until I started like taking accountability and responsibility that I was like, okay, no, like I have to do something, because I haven't had that person in my life for like a decade. I can't keep
yeah.
saying that it's his fault when he's over there living his life and I'm
Yeah.
over here like still stuck in whatever the trauma was.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, it's no longer worth it to just keep pointing the finger and saying, well, it's your fault because of this and that happened. And when my son died, I did a whole bunch of research on spirits and spiritual things. And I was also like having pretty deep conversations with my daughter because she was asking questions about souls and
I
all of
can't
that
even
stuff.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I decided that I believed at that point was that we choose to come into these lives. And so a good portion of our childhood, especially the more traumatic things, are things that we agreed to, and they're basically like our lessons, throughout our lives. To once we're adults, it's like remembering that, okay, so that dynamic with my mom, I chose that, and I chose to believe that I was somehow responsible for her emotions, whether or not she did anything or said anything to actually perpetuate that doesn't even really matter, because the point is that I, for whatever reason, chose to go into that dynamic. And I chose the perspective of I'm responsible for her emotions. So therefore it always comes back to me, doing my work and me saying, okay, why would I ever think that I'm responsible for somebody else's emotions? What did I get from that? Like, how did that somehow fill my ego up? Um, yeah, I totally agree with it. There's only so much really blaming that you can do. And after a while, you just start to realize that it doesn't do anything, to sit there and point the finger and say that someone else is at fault, especially like you said, when it's been 10 years and he's over living his life, and he's probably fine. He's probably
He
totally
is
fine.
fine. Well, I
I
do
mean,
think deep in my heart that I don't care how hardcore you are. There's no way that you can have a kid out there in the world and you be 100% happy. I do not
and
believe
not
that
know
in my
them.
heart. Yeah, like no, we actually met and we actually had conversations and everything else, but I just mean in general, like you can act like everything is fine, but there's
Mhm.
literally something wrong with you if you have a kid out there and you're like not anyways, that's just me. That's
It's
just my
well,
opinion because I had it when my boyfriend and I has been complicated and stuff like that. But I
mhm.
had his son, like I met his son when he was 1. And even though the relationship kept going, I wasn't able to see him again till he was 13.
Oh,
And for that
wow.
whole period, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just want my baby back. I just want my baby back. And now
Yeah,
that I have him again in my life, every time that he talks to me, I'm just like, ah, yeah, my baby's talking to me. So
yeah,
that day, I just realized that like, there's no way that you can put all the
yeah,
basis on whatever. It's not like I want to have a relationship with him or anything like that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I just know deep in your heart, you cannot be 100% happy if you have a messed up relationship with one of your uh, kids or whatever you want to call it. After my point, which I didn't have to, I didn't have one. What would you, where would my listeners can find you? Sorry.
I'm primarily on Facebook, Elizabeth White, spiritual psychology coaching. And then you can also find me on Instagram at unglued.healing, UNGLEWD.HEALING. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Already, and this interview is gonna be anyways, you're fine. This is the technical difficulty threw me off.
I know, I know, same here.
Oh, but I can talk to you for forever, and now I'm about to record another interview. But thank you so much for
Wonderful.
coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been great getting to know you.
Oh, thank you. The feeling is mutual. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Sorry for the end. Shit happens.
Right?
Oh, so anyways, you can find my podcast in all major platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube channel. So you know the deal. Like and subscribe, share with your friends. And anyways, hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you.